YouTube, how's it going? The Goat House is back with my updated NFL power rankings just before week 12 kicks off. We update these every single week. Not a whole bunch of crazy changes this week as expected, but can't wait for this upcoming week because there's a lot of big-time games this week. I already took a look at the schedule, and a lot of tough games to pick. So I'm excited for our pick'ems tonight, which is every Tuesday night, score predictions on Wednesday, and plenty more. A lot more even on the Patreon, patreon.com/thegoathouse. There's playoff predictions, score predictions for every game every week, and mock drafts. All of that is part of one package deal and updated every single week. You gain extra content at the same time as supporting us, patreon.com/thegoathouse. There's a link in the description. And please help us get to the subscriber goal of 40K by the end of the year. We'd really appreciate it. Full NFL content. Not just in the season, but in the offseason, we even have draft and free agency coverage nonstop. Click that like button. Check us out on Twitter at GoatHouseNFL. To the power rankings, some things I say every single week for the power rankings, I'm going to say them again. You can see some of the movements, the top 10. Some of those are hidden. We will reveal them when we get there. Another thing is I'm comparing 32 teams together. It's not about two teams. It's not about head-to-head. It's not about 10 teams. It's about 32 teams. 32-piece puzzles, I like to call it. If you see your team and, for an example, they won their game, they didn't move up, and you're confused because they won, you have to consider what is going on around them. You have to consider the teams ahead of them and what they have done. It's not all about one team. So those are just some important pieces there that goes into my power rankings. But let's go down the list here. We got the Cincinnati Bengals at 32. They remain there, no surprise. We'll rattle these off. No surprises here. The Redskins at 31. Thought they had a chance against the Jets going into it. Not much of a chance during the game. The Giants had a bye. Maybe they can break that losing streak this week against the Bears. So they are at 30. Moving down a spot is the Dolphins, and we'll see why they moved down a spot. It's because the Jets won again. Even though the Jets lost to the Dolphins a couple weeks ago, they won, and they're boosted up one spot just ahead of the Dolphins. At 27, moving down a spot, is the Cardinals. Their offense is getting better. This offense is definitely getting better. Kyler Murray's getting better. Don't know what's going on with David Johnson. It's just unfortunate. They've been losing tight games, and they have a bright future, but it's probably a little frustrating there. And then the Bucs are down 3 spots to 26. I've been kind of thinking maybe the Bucs are better than their record shows, but now I'm kind of off the Bucs. It's a rough team. There's a lot that needs to be done than we originally thought there. But it starts with the quarterback position, just too many turnovers, so they'll be looking for their QB of the future. They're down 3 spots. Another disappointing team is the Bears, down 3 spots. And, watching that Rams game, it was real rough for the Bears. There's more problems than Nagy and Trubisky. It was a rough game for both of them, whether Trubisky was hurt or not. They can't get anything going in the run game. There's nothing spectacular. I thought Tariq Cohen played a pretty darn good game, but obviously he's not an every down back. He's kind of just a weapon. The receivers played a rough game. The offense line actually played one of their better games this year, not saying much, and they still really couldn't get anything going. Defensively, there looks like there was some pretty wide open holes for Gurley. It looked like when the Rams wanted to, they can throw the ball downfield. They just played conservative, ran the clock. This Bears team is really disappointing. And have not impressed me one bit recently. They're down 3 spots. The Broncos stay at 24. They put up a good fight and probably should have won the game against the Vikings. They couldn't hold on. No need to move them down. Down 2 spots, the Lions, a team that I definitely think is much better than their record shows, but at the same time, they're still losing right now. They did put up a pretty decent fight with the Cowboys for what they have, but they're still down to 2 spots. Down 2 spots to number 23. Up 3 spots is the Browns. It was a good win over the Steelers. It was a good win because you're heading in the right direction. The Steelers have been the better team this year, and the Browns outplayed them. But with all that talent they have, all the playmakers they have, they should be able to play better. We should be able to see consistency and better play, and we haven't seen that yet. They're up 3 spots. They should be able to move up more, but they have to show me first. Moving down only 1 spot's the Jags. I still think a team that can put up a fight. A very, very disappointing loss against the Colts, though. Really no need to move them down more than that. Up a whopping 7 spots is the Atlanta Falcons. And this team's probably better than the 20th best team in football right now. They got to climb, though. We saw that 1-7 start. They're on a 2-game winning streak, and look who they played. The Saints in New Orleans, the Panthers in Carolina. Super impressive. The offense is the difference with the offense now than before is their start. They're not starting terrible. They would start games terrible and then really get going and playing like that old Falcons offense as the game went on. Now they're playing like that pretty much the whole game. So it's really not a huge difference. It's just the beginning. But where the huge difference is the defense. Went from the worst in football right there with the Bengals to much, much better right now, and credit to the coaching staff too. So 2 good wins, a 2-game winning streak, and we know this team's better than the record shows. So that is the reason they are up 7 spots at number 20. They can keep climbing too. Not moving anywhere is the Chargers. Another team I feel I have their identity. They're better than their record shows. They've lost a lot of tough games. At the end of the day, they still are losing. That's why they're down to 19. But this team's better than really the number 19 team. But it's just unfortunate season. The losses they've had. They very well could have and maybe should have at least put up a better fight or won the game against the Chiefs last night, which was Monday night. Bad quarterback play, which is surprising there. But Rivers is aging, and we can see it. Just unfortunate. Steelers are 18, down 6 spots. They were winning, but I still wasn't really sold on them. But I did move on the power rankings because they were winning. I love their front seven. Mainly their defense been playing solid, but the sloppy play like we saw against the Browns could come out at any time, and we kind of knew that. That's a game, even though I did expect the Browns to win, it's a game the Steelers just can't lose in that fashion as well. They're down 6 spots to number 18. Remaining at 17 is the Tennessee Titans. They had a bye week before that. They had a very good win against the Chiefs that could be an energy and momentum changer for the rest of the year. They did have that bye, though. Could that slow them down? Down 2 spots. And, based on how they played, you would think they can move down more. But you really can't move them down below any of the teams below them right now. Maybe if the Titans played last week and got a win, they possibly can move ahead. But the Panthers, a couple weeks ago, they get embarrassed by the Niners. I mean, a game like that, it's just, I don't know if there's any coming back from. And then they play the Packers. They play them tight. They were still impressive. And they play the Falcons, a team they should beat, and they get absolutely embarrassed. So it's tough even for me having the 16 by this team with the recent struggles. But as a whole for the season, it's really tough to move them down, but they're on the brink of really plummeting depending on what they do this week. They very well could win this week. We'll see what we think in our pick'ems. We'll see what happens in the weekend. At 15, again, a loss for the Eagles, another disappointing loss, but it's tough to move them down because who do you move them below? You look at what's around them here, and they did put up a fight against the Patriots. Carson Wentz probably played the worst game of this year easily, and they still were in the game with the Patriots. So it's kind of a good thing. It's not the most. It's a disappointing loss, but it's not the worst thing in the world right now. It's tough to move them down. Obviously, with a loss like that, I mean, you could move down, but there's just not enough teams moving up ahead of them. And obviously, we see what's going down below them. The Panthers losing, the Steelers losing a disappointing one. The Chargers lost, and they're not moving. I can't move the Falcons up that many spots, so I can't really move the Eagles too much. Up 4 spots, not the most impressive win, but unlike the teams, different from the teams around them, they got a win, and it's possible momentum changer. They beat the Bears. It was a very sloppy game. I did feel the Rams controlled most of that game, even though they had some turnovers early. But they're up 4 spots just because of what's going on around them. Not really thrilled with the Rams this year, but they can turn things around. Down 5 spots, number 13, the Texans. They very well may have lost to the best team in football, but coming off of that bad of a loss, that is a rough loss. Kind of reminds me of the Panthers when they played the Niners. I kind of just talked about that. We know the Panthers at that point after the Panthers played the Niners. We know they're a pretty good team, but can they really go far with seeing a game like that? That's kind of how I feel about the Texans right now. A very good team, definitely should get in the playoffs, but I mean, how far can they go? And then looking at what they just did, the performance they just gave us, and what's going on around them, we see there's at least a couple teams climbing here. So around their area of my power rankings, looking at last week, there's teams that are able to climb ahead of them, which forces them down 5 spots after that disappointing loss. Up 4 spots. Buffalo Bills, great record, but a team that really hasn't proven that they are to that record. But I was impressed. Even though it was the Dolphins, I was impressed with their game. I was impressed with Josh Allen. And I always like their defense. So they're up 4 spots. They're having a pretty good season. Just got to stay consistent. Can't slip up against teams like the Browns. But they're up 4 spots after that game. Up 2 spots is the Dallas Cowboys. They bounce back. Maybe the defense could play a little better. Letting Jeff Driscoll and the Lions, Bo Scarborough and the Lions score that many points is a little scary, but they controlled the whole game. The offense looks great. It just seems like they can't get the offense and defense on the same page at the same time, and that's odd. But they, they get a win. They're an impressive team still. They're up 2 spots, and we got some teams, around them besides the Bills losing recently. So there's really no way, they shouldn't move up here. We're in the top 10. Some of the movements are hidden. But staying at number 10 is the Oakland Raiders. Been very impressive. They add another win to the streak. There's just no room for them to move up, though. I don't have a problem with them. There's some people out there who are saying they barely beat the Bengals. I don't really have a problem with that. That's not why they're not moving up for me. It's just who's ahead of them. I couldn't move them ahead of the teams ahead of them. Because what they are doing. But the Raiders are impressive. They just were worried about running the clock and staying healthy in that Bengals game. I have no problem with it. Yeah, perfect world. You wish they'd beat them up a little better because of the Bengals, but not a big problem at all for me. Staying at number 9 is the Chiefs. They get a win. They get out of there with a win after losing to the Titans. They beat the Chargers in Mexico City, which that's what you have to do in that game on that field, is just get out of there with a win. It was not pretty whatsoever, so it's not really a team I can move up. That is a small part of it, though. A big part of it, why can't they move up, is because the top 8 teams, I believe, are the top 8 teams. So it's not about the Chiefs. It's not about the Raiders. It's not about that, just them, why they didn't move up. So I hope people understand that. But the Chiefs get out of there with the win. Moving up to number 8 is the Indianapolis Colts, up 3 spots. A very impressive win against the Jaguars. I did pick the Colts, but that one was my toss-up of the week, the game that could go either way, probably the closest game of the week in my opinion. But no, it was a 20-point victory, a dominant performance for the Colts, the beat-up Colts right now. So that was an impressive win. I'm impressed with this team, impressed with the coaching staff. They slipped up, lost 2 games in a row to 2 teams they should beat. But the injuries, mainly at the most important position on top of the other injuries, are a legit reasoning. So if I look at body of work, that those games aren't super valued or devalued because of those games. That plays a part, obviously, because if those games didn't exist at all, it would be way up there. But they do in fact exist. But they're up 3 spots to number 8. Staying at number 7 is the Vikings. You just can't move them ahead of the 6 teams ahead of them, because those teams, even though the Vikings have had a pretty darn good season, especially their offense, those other teams have played better this season. And the Vikings had a scare against the Broncos. If you watch the game, I'm a 100% believer that the coaching, mainly the offensive coaching and play calling, kind of put them in the situation to be down, and they let their talent play in the second half. Meanwhile, they do have a lot of injuries too, but they let their talent play in the second half, and the talent came back and won. It's a very talented team. The coaching staff just has to let them play, and they can't get cocky. The coaching staff got cocky in that game, I tell you that. They thought they were going to walk in there at home and beat the Broncos without doing anything, pretty much. But they stay at number 7. It was a very impressive comeback, no matter who you play, because the teams are 0-99 the last times teams were down 20-0 at halftime. So that's impressive. Number 6, like I said, it's a clear top 6. I got the Packers. They moved down 1 spot. They were on a bye, so obviously it's something they did. It's just we didn't get to see them play, and then we see the Saints, who are kind of in the same area with the Packers. They went 1 spot. Yeah, it's the Bucs. We see the Bucs are ranked number 26. I thought it was somewhat of a trap game, an interesting matchup for the Saints, coming off a loss to the Falcons, and they impressed me. They dominated that game completely. They won even more than the score showed, it felt like. So that was enough to move them up 1 spot. If the Packers would have played and won, that definitely they would have stayed 5 and 6. Now the Packers do play the Niners this week. If they get a good win against the Niners, not only will they move ahead of the Saints, depending on what the Saints do, obviously you have to keep in mind, but they can actually soar up to the top. But it depends on what those teams do too. I seen people in the comments last week, if the Packers beat the Niners, you better put them at top. It's not all about the Packers. There's 32 teams here, but like I said, that's a big-time game, and that easily can make them soar. So we'll see what happens. Really looking forward to that game. And let's just go quick here, because it's all the same thing. Patriots, Niners, Seahawks, Ravens. The only thing I considered was moving the Seahawks back to 2, the Seahawks down, the Niners up to 2, the Seahawks down to 3, because the Niners are fresh off a win. It was a little scary against the Cardinals. The defense didn't play their best game. They're coming up with more injuries and just kind of, the body of work crushed the whole season, but recently matters a little more. But again, the whole season matters too. The Seahawks have been a dominant team, so there's really no reason to move them down because they've been very dominant recently. And they beat the Niners. I know it's not head-to-head because there's 32 teams, but when it's this close at the top, when there's only a few teams, that could be the deciding factor. Just a small piece of my, system here. But the Ravens are hands down the best team in football right now. If you don't think so, you're lying to yourself. You don't have to. I'm fine with you if you don't say, if you say they're not going to be the best team when it's all said and done. I'm fine with that if you say that. Not that I agree or disagree. I won't say that. But if you cannot sit here and say they are not the best team in football right now, because hands down they are. And it's not just because of one player, Lamar Jackson, who's super impressive. It's because of Lamar Jackson. It's because the playbook, the scheme, the play calling. Mark Ingram, Gus Edwards, they're the best offense line in football right now. They got a good group of targets, too, starting with the tight end. But you look at the defense. All the talks about the offense. This defense, the last few weeks, may be the best defense in football. It's getting better by the week. So hands down, the best team in football right now, period. That's it. They're the best team. And at any time, they can definitely slip up like any other team in the NFL. That's the beauty of the NFL. They play the Rams on Monday night in L.A., and we know what happens in prime time, especially when you're away. So who knows with that game? That it's actually a test. It's actually a test there with that Rams good defense. So really looking forward to a lot of these games this week, a lot of them. I happen to look at the schedule, like I said, and this is the toughest week to pick. There's some really, really good games, tight games that go either way, especially with some teams starting to really pick it up and some teams starting to do the opposite, really start to fall down a little bit. So we'll see here. Can't wait for our pick'ems every Tuesday night, late night pick'ems with the fellas of the Goat House, and then my score predictions on Wednesdays, and junior score predictions are on the Patreon on Wednesdays. Plenty more action as well. A lot on the channel already, plenty more to come, so please join us for all that. Please subscribe, help us get to that 40K goal. We would really appreciate you, but thank you everyone for being here and watching this video. That's going to do it. Goodbye.